Can we still talk?
Oh, you can still talk.
I think we had that last time. We were like, is it illegal to talk before the timer's over?
No, not at all. I was just focused on getting the restream set up.
Nice to see you again there, Warren. How you doing today, buddy?
Hey, Michael. Doing well. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Elizabeth and George. And we got a Jennifer jumping in. Jennifer J. Buongiorno. Yeah, so guys, we're it's going to be an interactive show here today. We're going to be taking questions, answering any questions that you guys have about snapshots, making things scale, all those things that you hate about rolling out and managing high level when it comes to managing your accounts and snapshots. That's what we're going to be going through. I have a nice simple presentation, a little 10-minute to get us started, but you guys are more than happy to bring your own personal stories and challenges. We'll be feel free to be jumping on the video as well too if you want to get in on the conversation. We'll be happy to get you guys all set up. Because you only get what you get put into these kind of shows, right? It's not just going to be me talking at you for an hour. I mean, if you want to do that, I'll do it. But if you guys want to get the most out of this, yeah, bringing up your situations, real life things, and that means you'll get way more value out of it because we'll be talking about your issues.
All right, we are just at 9:05, everyone. So I will go ahead and kick it off. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. We got some people watching on Facebook and YouTube, which is awesome. I just shared our Zoom on Facebook and YouTube, so anyone that wants to join is more than welcome. Feel free to join in simply by watching. I'll be keeping track of all the comments and watching this video. And at the same time, I will be taking any questions you guys have over Zoom chat. So feel free to drop the information or drop any information you have in there. And without further ado, my name is Mario, and I'm one of the coaches here at GHL Coaches. I'm also the head of partnerships for HL Pro Tools and carry many different hats. But more importantly, you are all here today to listen to the absolutely wonderful Mr. Michael Pacito, a good friend of mine and one of the foremost experts on snapshot management, and snapshot documentation. Michael's been doing this for a long time. He's had his own agency. He's built many snapshots for other people. He's helped to curate snapshots. He runs snapshot competitions. He's got quite the deep bench of experience. So be sure to tune in and listen to how snapshots work, how you construct them, and how to document them. And with that, Michael, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks a lot, Mario. I feel you on that. There's talking about snapshots sometimes is one of the most awkward things, right? It's like one of the nerdiest, nichiest kind of subjects on the planet, and trying to come up with a new way of saying it all the time. It's just
But
like
it's like it's so important though because it's such a critical component to scaling.
it is. But sometimes, I feel like I'm doing because I do weekly coaching there with you as well, and with the group. But I'm always kind of being like, it's really important. Like the guy with the alien, like the conspiracy thing. Look how everything connects. It's really good. But yeah. So again, thank you so much, Mario. And the only other thing I'd like to add to that interest, I do actually manage a high-level agency, Vertical Action. It's not my company. It's a diamond SaaS company that they've done really awesome. And I'm just a pleasure to be able to work with those guys at Vertical Action and manage the thousands of accounts that they have. So the stuff we're talking about here, this isn't just some theory stuff. This is actually things that get used in the real world and constantly changing as we find new ways and better ways of doing things. So how these formats works, I'm going to talk just 10 minutes. I came up today with I've been working on a certification course for snapshot management. And my big focus for this last week or two has been simplifying things. What is like the simplest way to deliver value to people, to get people started? Because for most people, they're not 5, 6 years of experience in high level. Most people aren't starting with all their systems built. They've gotten some successes, they've been trying some things, they've been running to some challenges, and they need to kind of get the ball moving. So today we're going to be talking about the five core pieces of information that if you diligently document them, 80% of your problems managing your snapshots in high level basically just disappear. And it might sound like hyperbole, but it it really is, as some of the most complicated and biggest value things you can do are the simplest. And so if you guys really kind of take to heart today what we're going to go over, uh, it can radically change your business because it's one of those like little, it's like I'm not a martial arts expert, but it's like the judo kind of thing, finding that one fulcrum point that can, where you can kind of, if you can find that one part on someone's body, you can manipulate their entire body, right? Am I getting that right, Mario? Is that judo that I'm thinking of?
Jujitsu.
Jiu-jitsu, thank you. I've heard that analogy before. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the five core things to document that will fix 80% of your agency. So when it comes to building a snapshot or building a client account for the first time, one of the things you're going to run into is that it's really easy to start building things. You start building some features, you start building workflows and tags, and it's all making sense to you. Um, but then what happens over time is you switch from a building mindset where we're building something new, and you're switching over to a snapshot management thing where we've already built the snapshot, but now we have to maintain it. We're rolling out changes or rolling out the snapshot to our clients that maybe had version one, and now we're on to version two. Or we're going from just building something that we built on our own when we first started with HighLevel, and now we're bringing in VAs. We're building a team, right? We're trying to teach people the thing that we built about. We're trying to teach our clients how to use the thing that we installed. And that building a snapshot mindset is completely different than the snapshot management side of things. And my kind of philosophy on it is that what we want to do is not have two different brains and two different completely different working styles. The most efficient way for me is to make sure that what you're doing while you're building is the same way that you're going to be managing and updating your snapshot, because there's always a better way of doing any individual task, but trying to maintain all of those different ways of working, all those different kind of ways of documenting things. If you don't have congruence in that, you're going to be spending so much time on your processes, trying to make everything work together as you're changing the types of problems that you're solving. So what I've done is I've simplified all that, brought it down to saying, hey, what are the five things that we need that if we document them as we go while we're building, that's the same habit, the same technique, the same tasks that we'll do that will bring us success when we're managing our high level agency. Oh, we got a couple more people now. So, Rob, nice to see you there. George, Danny started off. This question might be answered later, but you don't want to forget. Is it best to use email templates or snippets, workflows? We'll talk about that a little bit there, Danny, but yeah, we will go through that later. So yeah, guys, just like what Danny did, throw your questions in, interactive. We'll be going through it and bringing up your own situations. So I'm going to share with you guys something I built just this morning. I had built a long time ago a little spreadsheet. It was what I called the simple snapshot manager. And why does Zoom want to just do that? And basically what it was a simple spreadsheet where it has the kind of main things that we need to manage our snapshots. Now there's more complicated tools. I've built my own Snapshot Manager Pro, which uses Airtable and is meant for larger operations or people ready to scale. This is what you need to get started. So what I've done is there's the 5 things that we need to document are real simple. One is we need to know while we're building workflows or tags, what is the name of those things? This is one I think we can all kind of agree on, right? If you have a workflow called the lead magnet opt-in, you should write that down in your documentation. The next thing we need is we need to know the asset type. Is it a workflow, tag, custom field, that kind of stuff? The next thing is the module. And this is something that I go in much deeper in my training, but a very simple way of thinking of is what is the major function or the major goal of this set of assets? So for instance, lead magnet, that might be one module. You might have your sales calendar. That might be another module. So all of the assets, we don't just want to know what is the name and does it exist? We also want to know what's its purpose. What is the objective and the reason why we have that workflow in there? And what problem are we trying to solve in our snapshot? Because with those three, just these 3 pieces of information, one, we know we have a workflow, but if you know what the purpose of each module is, you now know more about that asset, right? Then we have a description. Again, real simple stuff, but most people don't do these very simple things. They don't think about it. But a description is, yeah, a 1 or 2 sentence thing of why does this lead magnet opt-in workflow, why does it exist? What does it do? Right? It takes the leads that come in from the lead magnet form, it tags them and follows them up with 3 emails. You don't need a 5-page document to explain what your workflow does. It should be simple, 1, 2 sentences, and that's it. Because if it takes, like what the AI does, hey, explain this workflow, and it gives you like 5 pages, it's just dumping information at you. What we really care about when we're describing our assets in our snapshot is we care about, do we understand what we've built? And if we, as the person who built it, can't explain what we've built simply, probably means we don't really understand what we've built. And that's a sign that, hey, maybe we should spend some time on that. The fourth thing that we need, because the name, I don't count the name in my set of 5, is we need to know what it takes to set things up, right? Is there an assigned to user action? We should probably write that down. Is there an email in the sequence that needs to be customized? Well, we should write that down so that we have a list of everything that needs to be set up to make that one asset go live. And it might sound kind of obvious. Well, oh, Mike, don't we do onboarding processes down the road? Don't we want to do that once we're at the end of the build? Um, it might feel that way. It might sound very intuitive to do that. But the problem that happens when you're building and you're in that exploratory, I'm just building and all these cool things, you're going to forget the details. You're going to forget. Are you going to remember every single little step that needed a customization? Oh, this if condition needed the hours of operation added to it, for the hours of operation. That needs to be customized to the client. Those little things, when do you want to try and write those things down? Right when you did it and it's fresh in your head and you're there? Or do you want to wait till 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months later, where you're going to have to go through every single asset, every single workflow again, and try and find all of those things that you already have right here in front of you. So it's the building as you go kind of mindset is really important, and make sure you do your onboarding steps as you build. Don't wait till the end. Now you will put it all together at the end in a more client-facing format. That's will happen later. But if you're not writing down what it takes to onboard or set up your assets now on the individual asset level, there's some long-term things that you will run into later. And then finally, the fifth thing is it updatable? This this lead magnet opt-in workflow that we're looking at here, is it something that you can overwrite in your client's account safely? Or is this the type of asset that might be customized? Is it the type of asset uh, that might overwrite sensitive client data that you won't be able to just push out in the snapshot? It's something that when you do push out a new version of a snapshot, you're going to have to go through your client accounts manually and do any fixes if you need it. And that is it. I know it doesn't sound like a lot right now, and it sounds all very obvious, but I boiled it down to these five things that if you do them as you go, as you build, and as you change your snapshot over time, right? Because well, let's take an example, right? Okay, building that all makes sense. But how about managing your snapshot? Well, what happens when a client reports a bug, right? Hey, this workflow is not working. Well, you're going to go and fix that. Where do you update your information and your documentation about that? Because you have your onboarding documents. You're going to have to go randomly through the onboarding process and find that one video, and 3 minutes in, this is where we talk about that and change it. No, it's going to be really difficult to do, right? When it comes to now, let's say you have multiple people working on this snapshot. Where do you guys keep a centralized that information? Well, you should have a centralized documentation of, hey, I changed this lead magnet. I'm going to update the description because maybe things have changed. Oh, I added something that there's now new setup notes, right? And hey, maybe it's not updatable now, or maybe it wasn't updatable before and now it is. Well, by having your core documentation and these five things documented, when it comes to updating your onboarding process, the onboarding person, it might not even be the person who's building, it might be your account manager that manages that. Your account manager can now go through the onboarding process that they made because maybe they're an expert on that, and they can just go and sing, hey, this new version, what's changed? How is it different? Does the things that I recorded that video, that person will know this information better. So I just wanted to use these couple little simple examples to kind of show you how in any situation, everyone has their own way of doing things, and there's maybe a better way of doing any one part of building a snapshot, launching a snapshot, or maintaining it. But what we really want to try and do as a scalable agency is we really want to try and simplify our operations so that we don't have to explain lots of different processes. And every time we try and do something, we don't want to say, hey, but maybe we should do it this way because it's better. It might be more optimal in one instance, but is it optimal in the long term? Is it a robust process that will work no matter what situation we throw at it? So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Get your juices going about thinking about not just building your snapshot, but switching from that building mindset to managing it and trying to keep your processes as simple and consistent as possible. Oh, Interdeep Singh, thank you. You said, thanks for the great insights. Sent me a Facebook message. Oh, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. All right. And so yeah, so that's what I had for you today, guys. Has anyone kind of um experienced that on the documentation side of having your the onboarding process, right? You build an onboarding process and then 6 months later you have to update it. but you kind of don't know how to update it because it gets a little overwhelming. Does anyone kind of experience that or have any kind of experiences they want to share on that? How about you, Mario? Have you run into that situation before?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty common. Um, what's something that you would classify at, like, what's a situation you run into similar to that, like in a previous role?
Well, what it really comes down to is, and it's something I even still deal with even today, right? It's, the onboarding videos,
Hmm.
because trying to do all of it and trying to bring other team members into it is the hardest part. And because your onboarding process, you change your snapshot more than you change your onboarding process, right? You
Absolutely.
like, so it's kind of like we have a couple videos where it's like, hey, do we do like the 20-minute all-encompassing one-shot video, or do we try and break it down into smaller pieces? And it's either trying to find, hey, when I update things, which video is that attached to? And trying, if I don't have that documentation, if I haven't been as diligent with my setup notes, what I find is I can't give it to my juniors on the team. It's like,
Yeah, that's
hey,
totally fair.
it's like, hey, because if you say, hey, go through this video and tell me it's the same, well, people say, yeah, it looks good. But if you're saying, hey, here's the list of setup instructions for all of these, go through the video and tell me which one of these uh, agree with the videos or which one of these don't agree. Now you can give a lot more specificity. You could give people targets to hit instead of go through the onboarding process, start to finish again, and see if it still works. It's a different mindset when you have raw data to work with as opposed to just kind of making it up.
Yeah, I think one of the big pieces that, especially just talking about onboarding videos in general and like training on your snapshot is modularizing them the same way that you modularize the documentation and the workflows themselves. And you only explain certain things. So if you fix a minor change, and that's where like having a change log comes into play, like, when you're making minor changes, like let's say I change the name of a tag, but it's in the tag router and it's not really relevant to the context of the video because the video is explaining this is a tag router, it does these things.
Hmm.
Um, it's not as relevant, obviously, but you do need to update anything that's public facing. So having a good description or transcript of those videos in line with your documentation is super helpful. And you can even use platforms like HeyGen and like OpenAI to generate videos and everything like that. Um, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
because
there's so much cool stuff you can do.
again, that's it's bringing up another good point about when you're doing those updates. One of the challenges that you run into as you build is your snapshot gets big, right? You get 100 assets, you get 200 assets, you get 500 assets. By documenting on the asset level, as I was showing in the screen share there, by going on the asset level, it allows you to reduce the scope of what you're looking at and what information you need to process. Because when let's say in an update, you only update 3 workflows and a couple tags, like you're talking about the tags, right? Well, now when you're thinking about your onboarding process, you're not thinking about the whole thing anymore. You can now saying, hey, we changed these 5 assets. Here's what changed about them. All you got to focus on is that, right? What are the implications of that? As opposed to having an update that's maybe more general, and then everyone on the team from onboarding accounts and sales, everyone has to understand everything about the snapshot to understand what has been affected, right? No, by having asset level, you'll be in. No, one question from George. What's the context of a module number? Good question there. In the screen share, I just had module, which why not bring it back up again so we get a visual. That was just for an example. Unless you're talking about, I just kind of, just for the example of this template here, um, I want to know what module each asset is part of. And I just use module one, module two as a different name. You could do something like lead magnet, And then we can have the sales calendar, right? Or we could have our a webinar as our different examples. And then we could do something like that, throw them randomly into them, right? So the number that I had, that was just for that. But there is something that I do talk about as well, which is a module ID. Now we're going to get into the more advanced stuff, but uh, what I do when I'm naming my assets is I actually have an ID that is associated with the module. So it might be a two number or letter digit, might be 01, might be 001, it might be AB, whatever you want. Lead magnet, you can have LM if you want. And then in my names, I'll have something like LM for the asset for the module name, and then I'll make sure that my folders are called the same thing as the module. So the ID system is just a way as a tech person or someone who's updating managing the snapshot. It's a very easy way to see that ID. And now I understand the context while I'm working in the account for what that asset is. It's all about speed to information and speed to understanding. It's not to have some big complicated, make things fancy for no reason. It's the understanding that the only people who are really looking at our workflows are going to be the agency, right? If we're talking scalable agencies, we're assuming that clients aren't really digging into their snapshots, right? They're not learning how to use HighLevel. They're not learning how to use the snapshot. They're learning how to use HighLevel. Your snapshot should run in the background. So that's why I like having IDs to just associate assets with the module. But for this lesson, I was keeping it just simple. Hopefully that answers the question there, George. Feel free to jump on the mic if you have a follow-up. Be happy to chat. Cool. Seeing none there. Maybe we can go to Danny's question there. Oh, there's some more chats. Oh yeah, there we go. And Descript can do a quick update if you add just a few. Yeah, Elizabeth, that's a great. Yeah, I use Descript too. It's a great little AI and video editing tool. You can just go in, change the text, regenerate your that word so it kind of flows in the video. Bob's your uncle. There, way to go. Yeah, that's a great tool there. Elizabeth also asks, do you recommend creating one massive snapshot? Tale as old as time. Do you recommend creating one massive snapshot, breaking them down into smaller snapshots? Um, there's, as always, the answer is depends, but here's my rule of thumb. Starting out, one snapshot. If you can't do, get one snapshot launched and making money. Um, if you've already been making money, and by making money, not just yourself, but your clients' money, like get data that says, hey, this snapshot doesn't, we don't just sell it and make money, but this snapshot actually makes our clients money. That's the most important thing is solving actual real problems, not just getting people onto the system. Make one snapshot work, prove that it works, and prove that actual business model before you start worrying about adding complexity and organizational complexity. And so let's assume then, okay, Mike, I've done one snapshot. I've got the basics. I've gotten comfortable with that. Okay, now what's your advice? Um, I still generally assume one snapshot. The only reason I would recommend a second, breaking things down into smaller snapshots is if you have very clear lines between your products. Because what can happen is when you have lots of small snapshots, is that there becomes a little bit of bleed and overlap. And if you're not really good at maintaining, like if you have to fix one thing, you might have to fix multiple snapshots. Or fixing one thing, now you have to do tests on multiple snapshots to make sure they still work together. Um, and that gets really complicated quickly. So I do always recommend one snapshot. And if you need more than one snapshot to do what you're doing, that's usually a sign of, well, maybe we complicated something earlier on in our process, in our strategy. That being said, if you have the resources and you're willing to invest in a very good system for organizing it, multiple smaller snapshots is better. But I just wanted to make very clear that it's only better if you can manage it. Um, and you have somebody who knows what they're doing for that because there's a lot of trial error. I've done it before. I've failed and made not failed, but I've made a lot of mistakes before that seemed like it was a good idea, but 6 months, 8 months, 12 months later, I realized what I've gotten myself into and come up with slightly better ways. So be happy to talk about it if you're at that stage and you're ready to go. Um, cool. And Elizabeth, again, I'd love to hear follow-up if you want to jump on the mic or just follow up in the text.
I guess sorry, Michael, just
Yeah.
my quick question. The reason why I ask this is when we think about sub accounts and when we push the snapshot, right? And you can
Mhm.
potentially break things. So if you have an error only in one small piece, you know what I mean? You'd rather just push that small piece update versus, you know what I mean, giving a new snapshot that then you're going to worry about overwriting and you know what I mean? Like how do you, I guess that's really where the question comes from. How do you
That's
manage that piece?
that's a perfect question. Thank you, because it'll allow me to clarify a point there that we talked about. So I talked very quick about this at the beginning, right? Talked about the updatableness of it. Well, high level now has the ability, when you push out a snapshot, you can choose exactly which assets you want to push out. You don't have to refresh the entire snapshot anymore. Um, and so what you kind of want to do is in this is saying, yeah, if you only have 5 assets that are updated, don't push out the whole snapshot if you don't have to, right? Because you're increasing the chances of things kind of breaking. Um, yeah, does that answer that question there, or is there still some kind of question there?
No, I guess that's fine. It's just, you know, like when you do all these different webinars and things like that, and people give you snapshots, they're giving you really small pieces of snapshots. So from a monetization standpoint, I guess that's a part two of this question. Like,
Oh, yeah, that thank
uh,
you for bringing that context. So I don't recommend grabbing random snapshots, putting them together. I recommend the way when I'm talking about scalability, I'm not talking about there's a concept talking about growing versus scaling. I mean, it's not my concept, it's universal, right? Growing is when you're still building, you're growing your clients, you're adding new clients to your agency. Scaling is when we saying this product it's a workable, it's a working product. And now we're thinking about how do we make this one product scale out to like 1,000, right? So if you're still in the spot of, hey, I'm grabbing this snapshot. Oh, this is really cool. I want to add that in. We're not talking about scale, right? And in that's a different problem that we're solving. And it's fine to go that way, right? You're still learning, we're trying out, we're being very one-on-one with our clients and rolling things out. Maybe you only have up to 30 clients so that it's still manageable with a like a small team to do it that way. But when we're talking about scaling, when you're building a snapshot, you want to be a lot more you want to simplify it more and more and to the point where it's almost like it feels like it's less valuable or less cool of a snapshot because we at scale we care less about how optimized and perfect and amazing and all like and how optimal it is and we care more about well will it still work 6 months from now and yeah if you're grabbing random pieces and not building it yourself or taking those ideas and building it in a very
I'm
structured
looking
way
at it
yeah.
more. Sorry, you took that. I appreciate that feedback, and that's really great insight. It was more so when you look at it as a different monetization, which is like you're selling snapshots. People sell portions of snapshots versus a full snapshot, right? So why would they come to you to want more if you give them everything? So then
Mhm.
that was my question is, do you still want to sort of build out the smaller pieces to then feed into a bigger piece? So then you have the smaller pieces to monetize, to sell to then get people into your system. It's a different sort of like lead magnet, I think, approach.
Yeah, and as I said, you can do that way. I mean, again, really comes down to the details because there's a lot of, I might assume a little too much about that approach. But every time you have a different snapshot, it's a different product to manage. It's another variable that can get difficult. Um, I tend to like the here's the one solution that works. But again, it can work. You're correct. Yeah, how you monetize it. But yeah, so that would be a case of hey, I'd have to dive more into it. But I'm always hesitant. I've to manage multiple snapshots unless it's absolutely necessary. But yeah, High Level's also done a new thing now where you can have one snapshot and you can then make multiple snapshots on the same account and you choose just which parts are part of the snapshot. Up until
That was a
about a month,
huge update.
yeah. Up until 2 months ago or a month ago, you had to, when you made a snapshot, it was the whole account. So you had to have one small part of your snapshot on one sub account, and you made that a snapshot, and then you did something somewhere else. Now what you can do is you can have one snapshot, or sorry, one sub account, the terms, right? One sub account, and you can piece it out to your point. I'm going to have multiple modules that I monetize separately. And the cool part is, at least in the small tests that I've done, they do all connect together if you roll them out separately. So what you can do, that would be, if you're doing it that way, I think that way is okay to do and can be monetized by selling your snapshots individually, but not taking completely different systems and working them together. Does that Have you heard about that before, Elizabeth? That feature?
I did not know that that new feature was released.
Nobody knows about it. It's crazy. It changes absolutely everything. Whoever did that in high
Well,
level,
if you
yeah.
guys attended my weekly update calls, you would know about that feature. Nudge, nudge, Elizabeth.
You know what? I think it might just have to do with time of day, Mario,
I
'cause
know,
you know
I
I'm a
know, I know,
huge
I know,
fan
I
of
know, I
yours.
know, I know, I know. It's a lot of calls, but yeah, so it's in the change log. If you just search in the change log for snapshot, they've been actually iterating on it. First, they released where you can control what assets you're going to snapshot. Then they released where you can actually edit a snapshot and control the assets you want to snapshot. And then they also released when you send a snapshot, you have the ability to control the assets you're sending in the snapshot link. So there's three different control points, plus the control point of actually when you're loading the snapshot, selecting the specific assets, but doing it in the first three eliminates the need to do it in the last layer.
So, uh, bringing this all up, this is actually another great point. And when that feature came out, I felt so vindicated because I've been telling people to document as you go on the asset level, and people are like, it's a new way of doing it, this asset level, and people weren't it's like some people get it, some people don't. Now that HighLevel has this feature out, documenting on the asset level makes so much more sense because if you have an asset by asset documentation list, now you in your snapshot, you can go into your list of documents and saying, let's build a snapshot from these assets. From let's take module 1 and module 2 and here's the list of the assets, check 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 check. Like you can now do that kind of manipulation so much easier. So again, this comes back to my thesis at the beginning of this. If you document these 5 things on the spreadsheet, description, setup, is it updatable, what module is it part of, and what type of an asset is it? If you document those on an asset by asset level, all of these problems and questions you have the ammunition to solve them, especially with the way HighLevel's been going. So thank you for those questions there, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. We got a couple more questions. Someone asked you, Mario, do you diagram things in a platform like Miro? 100%. Documenting things is about showing your understanding, about communicating, getting things out of your brain so you can forget them. If you don't have a visual map of your snapshot, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know if anyone looks at a 20, 40 workflows and then just visually knows how they all map together. If anyone's out there that does that, please, I'd like to analyze your brain because that sounds like magic to me. But for most humans who are mortal, we need tools to visualize, to understand what things are. And a very simple documentation. One thing I've been teaching about Miro boards and draw.io is if you are going to map things out, use as little legends and bubbles and shapes as possible. What we're trying to do is communicate things simply that doesn't require having to read a book to understand how this, our Miro board works to understand. It should be something that you could just look at and kind of get, right? Danny asked, how do you recommend getting the feedback from people if you sell the snapshot rather than an agency sub account? So, Dan, are you saying like if you're a snapshot seller who sells to an agency, how do you get that feedback? Is that what you're asking? Yes. Well, that's a really important question. Another way of asking it is how, let's go from the other side. As a agency, how do you trust that the persons you're buying the snapshot from has actually used that snapshot in the real world? How did they get feedback, right? It's
Oh
hard.
man, that's a huge one. I cannot tell you how many people sell snapshots that have never actually used their snapshot and have no idea because they're not industry experts.
It's easy to build things. The problem is, who's going to be there when things go wrong 6 months, 12 months down the road?
Isn't that a lyric from a song?
Probably. If not, AI will make it a song soon. So the reality is that if you're a snapshot person who loves accountability and wants to sell snapshots, you probably are doing one of two things. One, you have your own clients, you have your own agency that you've been testing. I mean, Vit Muller is a dude in the industry who does snapshots. He runs an agency himself. He builds things. When he builds snapshots, he thinks about how would I implement this because this is actually a cool idea. I'd love to implement it, right? The second way, if you don't have an agency yourself, the second way is to actually use the same features that you've built in your snapshot to market yourself, right? That's another way. A third way is pair up with an agency saying, hey, agencies, I need beta testers. Or you make it more of a, I'm not just selling this for $100 or $300. This is something you're buying into a system, and I work with you, and we check in once a month, and we go through like, we getting that feedback saying it's a more premium snapshot. Why? Because testing takes time. It's R&D. But the agencies would benefit from that. Like as an agency who's going to be selling a snapshot to their clients for $500 to $1,000 a month for their accounts, if they're going to get 30 to 40 or 100 accounts, they have money to have somebody who helps them manage that snapshot. So a big thing that I'm advocating for is that we need to get away from snapshots as an individual product, and we need to start going towards snapshot management as a actual job service that needs to be done. And if you're building a snapshot and you don't have snapshot management as part of your process of setting goals for your snapshot and seeing, hey, how does our onboarding process convert? What is our show up rates of our sales? Now, that data depends always on the agency, of course, but if we don't have any data, if our stuff works, yeah, how do you do it? So yeah, it takes work, it takes money, and it takes doing more than just building and kicking something out and hoping someone else down the road deals with it. Oh man, hopefully I didn't step on too many toes there, but that's what we're here for, to push people forward. We have Warren on scalability with SaaS configurator. By the way, Rob, I think Mario addressed it. That's if that wasn't, please feel free to ask that question again. Warren, on scalability with SaaS configurator and tiered levels and snapshot. That is not a question. That's a statement with a question. Warren, what's the question there, my dude? Come on up.
I can't start my video.
Don't worry about it. We're good.
So I just want to get a place in the queue. That's why that was. So the question was, like if we're building like one like small business snapshot, for example, right? And if we creating that one snapshot, but we want to break it down into tiers, right? So one of them is just like funnels and forms for $100, right? The next one is the funnels form website email marketing for 200, and then the full Monty for 300. Just to keep it simple.
Mhm.
How can we use that new feature to break that single snapshot down into almost like those three tiers? And then what happens if somebody upgrades from the $100 tier,
Yep.
right, the core to the 200, and we need to update them and upgrade their account?
100%. So that is exactly what this feature solves. It allows
Okay.
you to have one snapshot that you can have a small, medium, and large version of it. And when they start on the small and then you add the snapshot that has the large, they 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 connect together.
Okay.
Now, um, there's there's a way of designing to make the most of that feature that I won't be able to get into now. But in general, it looks like it works pretty well for that. But there's something I wanted to talk about, and I appreciate you bringing it up: the small, medium, large, and snapshot. So, in my experience, what tends to happen, people that go, they have multiple snapshots, they have multiple tiers, eventually this conclusion that most 80 90% of the situations I've seen ends up with people getting rid of the tiers and going down to one product and going down to one snapshot. And the reason is the obvious ones that we've talked about, which is one, if you have three tiers, you now have three separate products, you need three separate onboarding processes, three sets of videos, three sets of blah, 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 right? The second one, and it's more being not like a different reason, but it's an underlying cause of this, is that oftentimes the three packages is a sales selling tool. It's not actually because it provides more value to the customers. And when you have multiple products that are different tiers and they don't actually solve any useful problem, but they add to the complexity and the amount of cost on the operation cost, that's what happens. 6 months, 12 months later, a lot of people that start with three tiers end up with just one product because they realize that the tiers was just a sales thing. It's either a working product that's been nerfed so that you can sell it lower, or it's a working product that doesn't really work unless you actually get the full package, and that's really what you want everyone to get. Now, there's a bit of assumptions in there. There's a bit of judgment, but here's where I would say you can do the tiered pricing with a more client focused approach. And one of that is that what is the problem that needs to be solved that someone would actually be negatively impacted by having the full package, right? And you need to make sure that if you have a small, medium, and large pack, and this isn't you, Warren. I'm kind of just want to use this as my soapbox as an opportunity to talk about this. But if you have a small package, you need to say, what problem does that small package start? Are they just getting started in business and they really just need to get that first client? Well, if that's true, they don't need onboarding. They don't need a whole onboarding system. A they don't need as much on like a whole as much on the marketing side of things. They don't need an ad campaign thing. What they need is something that gets their sales done, and it takes them 5 minutes to set up. They pay the money, they get onboarded, and like 20, 30 minutes later, they're able to now, they have their sales process kind of automated because most of their leads are just word of mouth and people they know, right? Versus a larger package, which is like, hey, if you have team members, you need a sales, you need all these
Mhm.
extra modules that manage your sales team that have round robins and all that. So a lot of times, if people are going to go down the three package tier, I just want to use this opportunity to say, make sure that your tiers solve specific problems. And it's not just best if all three of them were on one package. Uh, I think it's way, I think you're going to serve the customer better. I think you're going to get more success. It'll cost you less. It'll be less headaches. Everything wins if you just have one product as opposed to going three tiers that are just the same one product but broken up in three different ways. Um,
Yeah, thank you.
does that?
Appreciate that. And I agree 100%. I'm an advocate for a single package, right? One product, boom, at this
Yep.
price point. But the challenge, I'm working with a couple new affiliates, and they have a very specific vertical that they work within that they're going to resell, our system to. And they had requested the different tiers because of the price point breakdown. They want to, an entry, and I told them one package, but this is how they want to do it. So I'm just trying to
Well,
solve for that.
so
And
War, I'll be
yeah,
a little bit harsher on that one. I
sure.
mean, that's what you said, right? You said they just
Yep.
want it. Why? Just for the money. And
Well,
I'm
yeah.
not a sale, by the way, I'm not on the sales side of things. I'm not on Like, there are reasons that bind business ways, like sometimes that makes sense. I'm just saying that if you're making that decision and you're capitulating to that, there are trade-offs. It's not good versus bad. There's just trade-offs that you're gonna now do. Sorry, you maybe had another point you wanted to throw in there. Sorry.
No, that was it. I agree. I don't like going down that road, so I'm trying to solve and convince them that like just we'll do it at the one price point and call it a day. But
Yeah, it's easy. You say, well, no deal, guys. Let me know when you want to sell something that I know works because I'm responsible for the results. I'm responsible for the results. And I, in my belief, know that one product works. And your clients that you refer are going to appreciate you referring to something that is solid, that will work every single time. It might be a little more than you want to sell it for, but that's what I know brings success. Or you could simplify it and just say, sorry, I sell one product, guys. Let me know when you want to talk. That's the
okay.
actual
Yeah.
answer. Unless if your answer is anything other, I mean, from my perspective, I'm a bullish on the product. Uh, Business decisions, there's other things, but if for me, I just go, I focus on the solution, and anything else is, well, see, let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
That's
Cool. Thanks. I got that call at 10 o'clock, so I'll let you know next week.
yeah. And I'm gonna have a bunch of people saying, Mike, what are you stop saying all that? What are you causing us problems? You
No,
know,
all good, all good. And in fact, I took your advice and started sending out my, 100 different snapshots that we talked about last week's call. So yeah,
Sick. Good job, dude.
good, all
Appreciate
good.
I'm
Thank you
proud of
very
you,
much.
man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's the yeah, it's the thing. It's like who's gonna be there 6 months later, right? And because the affiliates they just care about the upfront. Some of them, not all of them, but they're incentivized, right? And the other thing too, guys, is like it's short-term losses. The affiliates are gonna eventually, I mean, hopefully they'll get sick of the people that they're getting referring to having bad results, right? And eventually people know. Like I teach snapshot management from the perspective to people that have been through the trenches. Like when I talk about scale, growing versus scale, growing is, and the rules are open. There's not as many rules when you're growing. All the things I'm talking about are not the only way to do things. It's just they're the only way to do things if you really want to scale, if you're serious about going down the scale route. If you're still learning and growing, there's a little more flexibility because you're going to be changing things, right? But I teach things to people who have gone down the road for 6, 12 months, a year, 2 years, and know and have run into the problems, right? So I just go, well, this is the way that I do things. This is the way that I know they'll work. Come back once you're ready. And what usually will happen is they'll disappear for 6 months. And then 6 months later, they'll come back and go, hey, you were right. Now we're ready, right? So there's a lot to be said about being focused on the results for the clients and being patient with it and it being okay with no. Because sometimes that is the answer, is that there is not we can't get our cake and eat it too. But what we can do is do things that we're not going to hate ourselves for making that decision, 6 months ago. Cool, guys. Anyone else have any more final questions? I might be able to slip one question in before I got to bounce. But
I know you're just up on time, so thank you everyone for attending today, and thank you to everyone on Facebook and YouTube watching us live. I appreciate you. Make sure that you click on that Zoom link next time and join in on a live Zoom call. Definitely a great experience to be able to talk through things with Michael live. Just a reminder, this afternoon we have at noon our noon Eastern, so 12 p.m. Eastern time, we have our live coaching call with Mr. Tim Sabir, the master of customer service management and customer retention. So be sure to hop on for that call. And I look forward to seeing everyone in a couple hours.
all right, thanks.